My friends, we live in a world that is content to drift, and downstream, arms crossed, eyes closed, lulled by the comfort of the crowd. But I came to tell you today, the crowd is not your calling. The 99% choose the wide road, the easy road, the road that requires no courage, no sacrifice, no faith. But you were not made for that road. You were not created to blend in. You were formed to stand apart. Let me tell you something, purpose never lives in the crowd. It lives in the climb. The climb that scrapes your knees, tests your will, and dares you to keep going when everything in you says stop. That's the road the 99% avoid, but it's the only road worth taking. The masses chase comfort, but comfort is a silent killer. It lulls dreams to sleep and murders discipline. And it buries potential in shallow graves, but you, child of destiny, are called to rise above comfort. You are called to sacrifice now so you don't regret later. The 99% wait for applause. They want the platform before they build the character. But the 1% work inside. They rise before dawn, they labor in secret, they plant seeds in dry soil, believing, yes, believing, that the harvest will come. When the world says play it safe, the 1% says walk by faith. When the crowd says fit in, the 1% says stand for. When society says reflect what's around you, the 1% says shine with what's within you. Hear me now. You will never change the world by being like it. You want to do what the 99% are not doing. Then turn off the noise and listen to the still, small voice that calls you higher. Then choose principle over popularity, discipline over laziness, and vision over distraction. The road is lonely, it is uphill, and few find it, but oh, the view from the top, it is glory. So rise up, be different, be bold, do what the 99% are not doing, and live a life that the 99% will never know. There is a road, my friend, that few ever find because it doesn't shine like gold or whisper comfort in your ear. It doesn't promise applause or offer quick rewards, but it stretches onward like a ribbon of fire cutting through the wilderness. And though it is narrow and often hidden by fog and tears, it is the only road that leads to purpose, the only road that calls you by name, the only road that tests the weight of your desire and separates the wanderer from the warrior. You see, the broad road is loud and wide and crowded with dreamers who never act, talkers who never move, hearts that beat but never burn. And while the crowd dances and laughs in shallow joy, deep down their souls echo with emptiness because the wide road gives you everything but takes from you the one thing that matters, your reason for being, and still they follow it because it's easy, it's safe, it's popular, but the narrow path doesn't care about it. It calls you to the fire so you can come out forged, not fragile. And oh, the narrow path will break you before it builds you. It will strip the ego, confront the lies, expose the weakness, and then whisper with thunder in your soul. And now we begin. For only when the world's voice is silenced can purpose be heard clearly. Only when the false identity is shattered can the real name be spoken. And that name is yours, not the one they gave you, not the one your fear made for you, but the one written before the foundations of time were. This narrow way, this sacred trail of discipline and pain and unseen victories, it doesn't wind through pleasure gardens or echo with praise, but it is lined with the footprints of the great, the brave, the faithful, those who gave their comfort for calling, who traded applause for obedience, who walked alone so they could live with purpose, who understood that destiny is never discovered on cruise control, but only by pressing forward when your legs are shaking and your tears are falling. And as you walk this road, this lonely, holy, demanding road, you begin to feel something rise within you that the world never gave and therefore can never take. A fire that doesn't flicker with trends, a peace that doesn't vanish in storms, a strength that doesn't come from you, but flows through you. Because the narrow path doesn't just lead to purpose, it awakens it. It calls it out of the shadows. It demands its full expression. And in doing so, it gives you... Yes, the narrow path is the way of the few, the fools in the eyes of the many, the misfits, the radicals, the ones who choose silence over noise, sweat over applause, truth over trends. And they are not better, but they are braver, not stronger by nature, but more surrendered by choice. And in that surrender they rise, in that humility they find a crown that cannot be stolen, a meaning that cannot be erased, and a joy that isn't manufactured by moments, but rooted in mission. And you may be mocked, misunderstood, even left behind by those who once walked with you, but take heart. For the narrow path doesn't lead to popularity, it leads to purpose, and purpose is worth every scar, every silence, every step. Because when you get there, when you arrive at the place only the narrow road could lead you, You'll look back and see that every pain had a place, every test had a reason, every valley prepared you for the peak you were born to stand. So don't wait for a sign in the sky. Don't look for a crowd to follow. Don't expect applause to guide you. Just take the first step onto that path that breaks the 99%, that builds the 1%, that path where faith is your compass and purpose your reward, and walk it not with fear, but with fire, because the narrow path may be hard, but it is holy, it may be lonely, but it is loaded with destiny. It may cost you everything the world offers, but it will give you everything the world cannot. There is a silent killer moving through our generation, a soft hand that strokes the soul to sleep, a voice that says, rest a little longer till it feels right. Don't risk too much, and that voice wears the mask of wisdom, mask of wisdom, mask of wisdom, but it is a liar, it is a thief. And though it whispers security, it secretly suffocates your purpose, because every calling comes wrapped in discomfort, and every destiny demands that you break free from the chains. You were not called to comfort. You were not set apart to blend in. You were not gifted so you could sit on those gifts and use them only when it feels good or when the world claps no. You were called to build, to lead, to serve, to sacrifice, and comfort will never push you to that edge. Comfort will keep you in the shallows while your purpose is drowning in the deep. Comfort will rock you like a cradle while time slips through your fingers like sand. And the truth that most run from is this: every calling requires a cross. Every purpose will ask you to bleed. And the moment you choose comfort over courage, safety over surrender, applause over obedience, you begin to trade your calling for a counterfeit life. A shell of what could have been, a story half written, a voice half used, and that kind of comfort may feel like a gift, but it will leave your spirit restless and your legacy silent. Look around. Comfort never produces heroes. It never raises prophets. It never forges leaders who move mountains. It raises spectators, not soldiers. It builds followers, not finishers, because comfort avoids the fire, avoids the wilderness, avoids the storm, but the fire is where your strength is tested. The wilderness is where your voice is formed, and the storm is where you find out who you really are. The greatest enemy of your future is not failure. It is comfort, because failure wakes you up, but comfort rocks you to sleep. Failure humbles you, but comfort flatters you. Failure says to learn and rise, while comfort says stay and settle. And as long as you bow to comfort, you will never walk in your full assignment. Because your calling was never meant to sit in a safe place. It was meant to stretch you, scare you, and send you to places where only faith can sustain you. And if you think comfort is your friend, just ask the one who buried their dream under a paycheck, who traded passion for a position, who silenced their voice because it made people uncomfortable, who chose the short-term applause of men over the eternal approval of God, because the most dangerous prisons don't have bars, they have cushions. And the most subtle form of defeat is disguised as I'm doing okay. But let me tell you this, if you ever want to walk in the fullness of your calling, if you ever want to see what God saw when he formed you, if you ever want to know what it feels like to live wide awake and on fire, then you must wage war against comfort every single day. You must reject the easy road, turn off the noise of the masses, step out of the boat, leave the familiar, and say yes, even when it hurts, even when it costs, even when no one claps, especially that. Because comfort is not your reward, it's your resistance, a ceiling placed over your potential. But calling, real divine calling, is worth every stretch, every scar, every sleepless night, every lonely road. Because calling is where heaven touches earth through your obedience. And if you will kill comfort before it kills your calling, you will rise not as someone who merely lived, but someone who fulfilled. There is a kind of strength that doesn't shout, a kind of fire that doesn't flash, a kind of greatness that is not performed, but forged in silence when the lights are off and no one's clapping and no one's clapping and no one sees the hours you put in, the tears you bury in prayer, the sweat soaked into the ground of your unseen obedience. And that strength is called discipline. Not the kind that needs motivation or applause or praise from others, but the kind that shows up when no one is watching, when no one is asking, when it would be easy to quit and no one would even know you did. Discipline is the quiet war you fight with your own laziness, your own excuses, your own comfort, your own fear. And it's not pretty, it's not poetic, it's bloody, it's gritty. It's early mornings when the world still sleeps and late nights when your body begs for rest, but your purpose keeps whispering. Just one more rep, just one more page, just one more prayer, and you obey not because anyone's keeping score, but because your future demands that you pay the price now. In secret, while the world scrolls and sleeps and settles. The 99% work when there's a deadline, a spotlight, a reason to impress, but the 1% live differently. They build when no one is watching. They train in the dark so they can shine in the light. They lay brick upon brick while others chase shortcuts because they understand that what is not built in private will collapse in public, and the platform you dream of will destroy you if the discipline to sustain it hasn't been born in secret strife. You see, discipline is not about what you do when it's easy. It's what you choose when it's hard, when the fire in your bones has dimmed, when doubt knocks louder than purpose, when your flesh says that this is pointless, and you still rise, still show, still push forward because deep down you know that consistency in the shadows is the womb where true greatness is conceived, and calling without discipline is just noise waiting to... And what you feed in private will show in public. What you train in silence will scream through your results, and there will come a day when the fruit reveals the root, when your habits outlive your height, when your character outweighs your charisma. And in that moment, the quiet, relentless discipline you've carried like a cross will become your crown. And no one will see the full cost, but they will see the outcome and wonder how you got there. And the answer will not be luck. It will be private discipline and sacred sacrifice. The mirror is a better test than the audience. The clock is a better partner than the crowd, because the mirror never lies and the clock never claps. And if you can learn to be loyal to your calling in the absence of affirmation, if you can do the work when no eyes are on you, if you can be excellent when there's no reward in sight, then heaven will honor what earth ignores. And doors will open not because you knocked loud, but because your preparation made you ready. Discipline is the language of the few, the chosen, the uncommon. And if you truly want to rise above the 99% above the average, then make your bed when no one checks. Say no when no one sees. Train when you're tired. Finish what you start. And remember that your destiny is not waiting at the end of a stage. It's built one quiet, invisible, uncelebrated act of obedience at a time. So let them sleep, let them scroll, let them scroll, let them waste time while you build in silence, while you labor with no likes, while you pray with no praise, because one day the doors will swing open, the lights will turn on, and the world will call it overnight success, but you will know deep in your spirit that it was discipline when no one was watching that brought you into the place you were always meant to be. There comes a moment in every life, not once but again and again, where the voice of fear stands taller than your faith, where it looks you in the eye and dares you to step back, to shrink, to settle, and it dresses itself in logic and reason and statistics and stories of failure, whispering, what if it doesn't work? What if you fall? What if they laugh? What if you lose everything? But faith, oh faith, whispers something different, something eternal, something wild and holy, saying, what if it does? What if you rise? What if this is the moment history turns and heaven smiles and destiny begins? You see, fear builds walls, but faith builds bridges. Fear paralyzes, but faith propels. Fear demands safety, while faith demands surrender. And this world is full of people who bowed to fear and now live lives of regret, haunted by the chances they didn't take, the words they didn't speak, the mountains they never climbed, not because they couldn't, but because fear convinced them they shouldn't. And so they stayed small, stayed hidden, stayed silent, while purpose passed them by like a ship in the night. But the 1%, the ones who rise, the ones who burn with vision, the ones who change the atmosphere when they enter a room, those are the ones who choose faith every time fear speaks. They feel the fear. Yes, but they do it anyway. They move anyway. They give anyway. They show up anyway. Because they've learned that courage is not the absence of fear, but the refusal to be ruled by it, and that heaven doesn't back cowards, it backs faith. Faith is not a feeling. Faith is a decision, a declaration, a posture of the soul that says, even if I walk through fire, I will not bow to fear. It is not blind. No, it sees more clearly than fear ever could. It sees with eternal eyes. It sees purpose behind pain. It sees miracles in the mess. It sees victory beyond the valley. And even when your knees shake, faith says to keep walking. Even when the sea won't part yet, faith says to step anyway. Even when the door is closed, faith knocks louder because faith knows who sent it. And fear always looks bigger at the start. It shouts from the shadows. It plays its tricks in the silence. But when faith stands up, when faith speaks, when faith stretches its hands toward the heavens and moves its feet toward the unknown, fear begins to shrink. Because fear cannot breathe in the presence of faith. It cannot stand in the atmosphere of trust. It loses power the moment you act on what God said instead of what your feelings scream. So make no mistake. Fear will visit, fear will whisper, fear will wait at every threshold to break through. But you don't have to let it stay, don't have to let it lead, don't have to let it drive. Because every time you choose fear, you delay the promise. But every time you choose faith, you invite the impossible to bow at your feet. And what seemed out of reach suddenly becomes a testimony waiting to be born. The world says to play it safe, but faith says to launch into the deep. The world says to wait for proof, but faith says to walk on the water. The world says to make a plan B, but faith says to burn the boats. Because you were not made to live behind the glass of what could be. You were made to break through, to risk it all in the word you carry, to go where others won't so you can become what others can't. And when it's all said and done, when the curtain falls on your story, let it not be said that you lived small because fear was loud. Let it be said that faith had the final word, that every battle you faced, every dream you chased, every leap you took was marked not by how little fear you had, but by how fiercely and faithfully you chose to live faith over fear always. There is a force in this world stronger than the fiercest storm, louder than the harshest crowd, deeper than the darkest doubt. And that force is conviction, the unshakable, unmovable, unwavering belief that you are called to stand for something greater than approval, greater than comfort, greater than the fleeting applause of men. When you stand firm in conviction, you stand on the rock that no flood can move and no wind can shake. Too many people drift like leaves in the wind, changing direction with every whisper of opinion, bending to every passing trend. But the ones who change history, the ones who leave a legacy, the ones who ignite revival and revolution, they are rooted deep in conviction, anchored by a purpose so clear and a vision so strong that even when the world shouts a turn back, they hold fast and say, oh no, this is the way. The conviction is not born in moments of comfort or convenience. It is forged in the fires of trial, tempered by the weight of sacrifice and sharpened by the sword of truth. And it demands more than agreement. It demands allegiance, a sacred vow to stand even when standing costs you friends, security, or the easy path, because conviction is loyalty to the voice of God over the noise of the crowd. When others waver, when others question, when others doubt and back down, the man or woman with conviction stands tall like a tree planted by the rivers of living water, their roots digging deeper in storms, their branches reaching higher in sunlight, unafraid to beaver, unafraid to be alone. Because they know that faithfulness in small things is the pathway to greatness, and that yielding to pressure is the pathway to regret. And conviction calls you to say no to what is popular and yes to what is right, to hold fast to what is true even when it's unpopular, to carry a standard that the world mocks but heaven honors. Because to stand firm in conviction is to become a beacon, a lighthouse, a fire that cannot be hidden no matter how dark the night or how violent the wind. It is easy to stand with the crowd, to follow the majority, to echo the popular opinion, but it takes courage to stand alone, to hold your ground, to speak the truth in love when it is inconvenient. And to remember this, history is made by those who stand firm while others fall away, by those who refuse to compromise their calling even when it means standing on a lonely mountain with no one else in sight. Your conviction will be tested, your resolve will be shaken. Your heart will ache for comfort and companionship, but stand firm, stand strong, stand bold, because this world needs people who will stand without wavering, who will speak without fear, who will live without apology. And when you stand firm in conviction, you become a city on a hill, a light in the darkness, a voice for the voice. So plant your feet and raise your voice and refuse to bend or break, because conviction is not just belief. For I have been called to something greater, and that unshakable stance will carve your name into eternity. There is a choice laid before every soul walking this earth, to be a light that pierces the darkness, or to be a reflection that only bounces back what is already there. And while the world is full of reflections, repeating the noise, copying the lies, and echoing the confusion, the calling on your life is to be a light, a source of truth and hope that cannot be dimmed, a flame that burns steady and bright no matter how dark the night grows. Reflections depend on something else to shine. They need a source, a spark, a light to mirror, but a true light carries its own power, its own fire. And when you choose to be a light, you refuse to live in the shadows of others. You refuse to settle for secondhand glory, secondhand purpose, secondhand identity, because a light that stands on its own illuminates paths where there were none and guides weary travelers toward freedom. To be a reflection is safe, it's comfortable, it's the easy path, the path of least resistance, where you blend in and avoid confrontation, and you follow the crowd so you don't have to lead. But a light does not conform, a light does not hide. A light does not wait for permission to shine. It bursts forth boldly, exposing the lies, breaking chains, challenging darkness with brilliance and conviction. And yes, being a light comes with a cost, because when you shine, you draw attention. You invite opposition, you risk rejection, but remember that stars don't shine without darkness. And the brighter the light, the deeper the shadows it exposes. And you were never made to shrink back in fear of rejection, but to burn so brightly that the night cannot hold. The world desperately needs lights, not mirrors, lights that speak truth when lies fill the air, lights that offer hope when despair threatens to overwhelm, lights that show the way when confusion clouds the mind. And you can be that light, not by trying to outshine others, but by embracing the unique fire that God has placed within you, the fire that no one else can carry exactly like you. Do not waste your days reflecting what the world already knows. Do not dim your flame to fit into the mold of those who fear the brightness of authenticity. Because when you stand firm in your light, when you let it shine through your words, your actions, your very presence, you become a beacon to the lost, a refuge to the weary, and a testament that darkness cannot overcome the power of one burning soul. And the light within you will grow stronger with every challenge, every test, every trial that tries to extinguish it. Because light feeds on perseverance, on courage, on the refusal to be silent. And as you nurture that light, you will find that you don't just illuminate your own path. You ignite a fire that spreads, that inspires, that transforms, creating a blaze of hope that no darkness can ever contain. So rise up and shine, not as a reflection, but as a light, knowing that your purpose is to illuminate, to inspire, to lead, and to change the world not by echoing what others say or do, but by blazing your own trail, by living so brightly that you cannot be ignored, by being the light that others long to see in the midst of a darkened world.